Coming up, DelPrince and Chris Walthers join us in the studio to discuss their experience at the Walt Disney World Marathon Weekend. From the Bob Varley Studio here in Orlando, Florida, this is the DIS Unplugged. This is the DIS Unplugged, episode 670 for the week of January 14th, 2014. The DIS Unplugged is brought to you by Dreams Unlimited Travel, experts at helping you plan the perfect Disney vacation. Visit them on the web at www.dreamsunlimitedtravel.com. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the DIS Unplugged, coming to you live here in the Bob Varley Studio in Orlando, Florida. I am your host, Dustin West, joined at the table this week by DelPrince.
Hi, Mom.
Chris Walthers.
Hi, Mom. Hi, Kim. Hi, Jenny Abby.
We also have Teresa Eccles and, and Kathy Whirling. And back in the production nook, we have Sean Thompson and Craig Williams, our associate producers. Now, this is a very special edition of the DIS Unplugged. We have some friends of the DIS Unplugged joining us today for the very first time in the studio. We have DelPrince and Chris Walthers. Yeah. Welcome.
Yeah,
welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us here.
Yeah.
And you guys just experienced the whole marathon weekend.
Yes.
And we're definitely going to talk about that. But I thought before we got into that, maybe you guys could share a little bit about yourself and maybe your experience with the show and, you know, kind of where you've come from and what led you here.
Well, I'll go ahead and start. You know, we've been watching from the beginning, you know, when it was just audio only.
Yeah.
And
way back last year.
Yeah, last year seemed like it, right? So yeah, we've been watching for a while and listening, and you know, we became close with everybody because of, you know, just get-togethers and gatherings, and you know, got involved a little bit more. I started writing blogs, and that's been really fun. It's been quite a bit of fun. Just, you know, being able to express yourself has been a treat. So, and then you know, we got more involved with Give Kids the World, right?
Right.
So, you know, we host our event in Indianapolis every year, and we've met a lot of people through that, but also through the site, through disboards.com, especially on the podcast board, and also through you know, the Wish board and some of the other boards that are out there. So you kind of get caught up in the whole hoopla of it. For me personally, I love, you know, seeing what's going on in the parks every day, seeing what's happening in Orlando. So I get on frequently just to see what's going on, what's the pulse like down here. And,
right.
So it's quite entertaining.
Did you say where you're from? We know where you're from, but maybe everybody doesn't.
Well, we're from Indianapolis.
And of course, as you mentioned, you guys are a couple of the folks that help coordinate the Indianapolis DIS Meet for Give Kids the World every year.
Right.
And that was a wonderful experience we had this past year. I had a lot of fun. Yeah, you guys really showed us around the city. That was a good time.
Well, and we're going to do it again this year, September 6th. Mark your calendars.
And how many years is it now?
It'll be 7, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lucky 7. Yeah.
Lucky number 7. How about you, Chris?
Well, I actually, my introduction to the DIS and to Aaron were kind of at the same time. And I actually started going to the boards, and I contacted him through the boards, actually. That's how I found him.
Oh, okay.
And because he was talking about trip reports and stuff, and I was like, well, he's a really good trip report writer, and he really is. And so I thought I would ask him some questions because I was going to take my wife to the Polynesian for our anniversary week. And so I asked him some questions about that, and we got to know each other and found out he lived in Indianapolis, and I was like, that's really close. And then we started getting together and having DIS meets ourselves with groups of people from Indianapolis, get-togethers during the year as friends, just to have fun and talk about Disney and stuff, and got more involved with the boards, came down to I went to Disapalooza, I've been on the podcast cruises, gone, you know, had dinner with John and Kevin a couple of times.
Oh, that's sad. You had to do that.
I've always wanted to have dinner with you, Teresa, but come on.
Never do you ask me?
Yes.
Do I say yes?
No.
Well, I'm really glad that that has led you guys to today? Because when we found out you guys were going to be doing the marathon, of course we wanted to have you on the show and talk about that experience. And I know, Aaron, you've been doing it for a couple years now, right?
Yeah, this was my first marathon. So,
Okay.
but I've done 9 half marathons before this. So this was a big step, and quite honestly, I had some feelings about doing this because I wasn't sure if I would make it. It's a mental grind because you sit back and you think 26 miles is a long ways.
Yeah.
And you think to yourself, I've done 13. And I always say after finishing 13, could I really do this again?
Right, a whole nother one of these.
Yeah, a whole nother one of these. But you kind of think to yourself, okay, I have to start out slower and just kind of pace yourself. And then eventually you make it all the way through. But it is quite an experience. I'm glad I did it. Again, I sat back and just thought about it. In fact, the night before the race, I had a little insomnia because I was just sitting there thinking about, will I get swept? How am I going to do with this? Am I going to make it? And you just have all these different fears and feelings going through you. And then you realize at 3 o'clock when your alarm goes off that, gosh, I've only slept 2 hours.
Oh, gosh.
Am I going to make this? But you find the adrenaline.
Yeah.
And when you're in the corral getting ready to start, you get this rush of emotion. And then, when Mickey says go, let's go. So.
Now what, we're talking about the whole marathon weekend. Of course, you're talking about the marathon itself that was
Right.
on Sunday.
Exactly.
Now, what are the different kind of races that they have throughout the weekend? If we can talk about that for a little bit.
I'll go ahead and just start. I'll just say this. Weekend is kind of a misnomer because it used to be a weekend. Now they've stretched it out to where it starts on Wednesday in the middle of the week. So on Wednesday, they start with the Health and Fitness Expo. And that's where everybody goes to pick up their race packets. They go there to look at new technology in running. You can buy your official Run Disney shoes there. New Balance and Run Disney have a partnership now where you can buy Disney shoes.
Where was this
Yeah.
at? Where was the expo?
It was at Wide World of Sports
Okay.
in the HP Pavilion and then the Jostin Center. So it takes 2 buildings.
But isn't one of the things, not that I know a lot about running, but isn't one of the things when you go to run, you don't wear new shoes right before a race?
That's very true. You want to break them in before your race. Running with new shoes is dangerous because you don't know how your feet are going to adjust to them, and you don't want to get blisters or calluses because you've bought these new shoes and they're like, oh my God, these aren't working for me. So the Health and Fitness Expo, a lot of booths, a lot of sponsors are there, and you can check out all the new stuff in running. It's very big. There are a lot of booths there.
And that kind of comes along with the whole, Run Disney organization being expanded over the last couple of years. It's not just a marathon anymore. It's this whole wing of the Disney company that puts on all this health-oriented stuff, and they've included this into almost what turns into, like you said, an expo. It turns it turns the whole marathon weekend into. Let's all gather here and learn about these things.
And if I may, Run Disney is a brand. It's a brand off the Disney brand, and this is their flagship weekend.
Right.
Out of all the events they do throughout the year, the running events, this is their flagship event. Disneyland, they have events out there. They have more events at the Walt Disney World, but this weekend and even the marathon, that's really their flagship event. So they put a lot into it. So.
Okay. And as far as after the expo, what's kind of the schedule of the races that happens after that?
The 5K happens on Thursday morning. I think it kicked off around 6:15.
Yeah.
And that most of the activities are around Epcot. That's where they start, and that's where they finish. So the 5K started at Epcot. It was pretty much in and out of Epcot, some of the backstage areas. And I believe Katie ran it, correct? Yeah. This was her first 5K, I believe.
No, this was her second.
Her second?
Really?
Okay. That was excellent. And then, so after that event, the next day at 5:30 was the inaugural 10K event, which is 6.2 miles. Again, starting at Epcot, going around Epcot, coming back through, and then finishing in the Epcot parking lot. And then Saturday was the half marathon. And again, Epcot, out to the Magic Kingdom, and back to Epcot. And then finally on Sunday is the big one. That's the marathon.
That's the marathon.
And that is basically, you start at Epcot, you go to all 4 parks, you go to Wide World of Sports.
You're all over
You're all
property.
over the place. Yeah, it's
And you
crazy.
did them all?
No. No.
That was the Dopey Challenge, and it was 48 point something miles. They were saying at the race on Friday, the 5K, that there were 7,000 participants there that were participating in the Dopey, which was 48 miles over those 4 days.
Yeah, 48.6 miles, which before the weekend, I was kind of looking at some things, and I found that 48.6 miles is pretty much the equivalent from Orlando to Port Canaveral.
It is. I was just
Yeah.
going to say that. That's my drive to work.
Yes, that
Holy
is-
crap, there is no way I would do that.
is a lot of distance to cover.
I'll never forget. I was working at Animal Kingdom, and it was the day of the marathon, and of course they had it. You know, it runs through the Animal Kingdom, and I worked at the trains that go back and forth to Rafiki's Planet Watch, and they had like special people that were there that. We couldn't run the train across the track because people were running, and we could only run like every 15 minutes or something, and because obviously you wouldn't want to run a train while
Right.
people are running across the track. So that was kind of interesting that it's not like it just loops around the parks or anything. It literally goes in through and through the backstage areas and all that kind of stuff. It's really cool. Now for guys that I'm sure you didn't start off as professional runners for the last 20 years or whatever, what is it like going into this kind of event? I know you've had a little bit of history with doing these kind of events, but what's it kind of like, going from not ever imagining that you would do something like this to now finally I've done it?
Yeah.
Well, I actually started my running with the Muddy Buddy, and that was with the DIS. The DIS group of people got together, and we did the Muddy Buddy right before the first podcast cruise. It was actually the same weekend.
Right.
And we came down, and it was for Give Kids the World, and we started it all out that way, and that's how I started, and I trained for that, and that was 6 miles, 3 of running and 3 of biking, and you'd alternate. Every
And I
mile and mile.
didn't know that was the first time you'd ever run.
Yes.
Huh?
And-
Ever? You didn't train at home or anything?
Yeah, I did.
Well, yeah, but I mean
trained
for his
that.
first official event.
I trained over the spring for that event because I'd never run before, ever. And then after that, the next year they did another Muddy Buddy, and I did that one. And then after that, I started doing 5Ks. And then after that, I did my first half marathon was the mini marathon in Indianapolis. And that's the largest mini marathon or half marathon in the nation. It's
So do you run every day of your
32,000.
life?
I like how she says that.
You're not supposed to. When you're training, you're supposed to run like every other day.
For like a couple blocks or what? I mean, how far are we running?
You want to start out slowly, and there's a lot of apps that are very helpful, like for iPhone.
The couch to 5K thing. Yeah.
Well, that's actually one that I use for the
Really?
Muddy Buddy. I use that one, and I also used it for my first 5Ks. And then when I did my half marathon training, I used the Jeff Galloway app that Disney sponsors. And then for the marathon, I used the other Jeff Galloway app. And what he does is he trains you to walk or run, walk, so that
Yeah.
you don't overdo it by all running.
But some people do all running, right?
Some people do, and for me, my back is in such a way now that I can't run anymore, and so I walked the whole marathon, and I walked the 10K as well, and that's what I do now. Is I speed walk my races.
Okay.
And you're still able to beat the pace
Yes.
that's
Yep.
designated?
Yeah, how long did it take for the marathon?
Well, they keep
Go
the
ahead.
course open for about 7.5 hours.
Oh my gosh.
Now, if you're past that, and basically how it works is they have a group at the very end that have balloons, and if they pass you, they will call you to be swept.
Swept?
yeah.
What does that mean?
That means you
You're
get
done.
picked up by the shame vehicle.
Yeah.
As I call it. That's basically what happens because I actually was around the balloons during the marathon. So what happens is they have 16-minute mile per mile pace walkers, and they keep a 16-minute pace every mile. through every single mile, and they've done this a lot, so they are very reliable, and they have a pace clock with them, so they know what they're doing. And then they have these, the big transparent Mickey balloons with the white Mickey inside. Well, they have like 2 of those on each of them that you just tie to their belts, and they hang up so you can see them if you look back.
And you're back far enough where you can see them. You didn't see them, did you, Aaron?
So,
I didn't. No.
They caught up to me in because I stopped to stretch.
Do
a
they
little
shame
bit.
you verbally or anything?
No, but they were close to me and they said, "Come on, guys, this is the pace." And so I was like, "I'm not getting swept, not at mile 19." So I pulled everything I had out of me and I made it about. And then further along at like mile 22 or something, they have people along the course telling you how far ahead you are of the pace. So like there was a lady there who's a volunteer who said, "Okay, you're 30 seconds ahead, or you're a minute ahead, or you're a minute and a half."
So they're behind,
ahead.
that far behind you.
So they're that far behind you.
But
so
if at any time they pass you, then you get swept away?
No. I'll tell you why. So I got to the point where you go through the stadium. And, at Wide World of Sports. And when I came out of there, they were just going in. And what they did was for anybody behind there, they closed that off and you couldn't go in there. And the other people that were behind, the volunteers said, "You guys are behind, you need to just go this way." So they were helping a little bit by giving people less way to go. But at some point, if you're too far behind them, they have people that ride bikes next to you, and they will tell you you're too far behind. You need to stop.
Oh gosh!
And
you just burst into tears.
And I'll tell you Then what happened to me was I stayed ahead of them all the way until right where that bridge, that walkway between the studios and the boardwalk area. There's a sidewalk. We had to take that. That was part of our course. And right where the bridge is. Right there, there were coaches along the way telling us keep going.
Encouraging. Okay.
And there was this coach there, and the balloons were coming, and I was having.
Oh God, that's so scary. The balloons are coming. It's like a clown following.
And
oh my God, Pennywise!
It puts an extra. I mean, at that point, I had an extra level of stress on me that I didn't want to get swept because I had gone so far. Walking.
But you were in pain.
Well, yeah. But everybody's in pain.
Yes.
So what happened
Sounds
was
fun.
they were getting closer, and the guy said, "Pace is coming, but you guys are okay." And everyone was like, "Are you sure?" And he goes, "Yeah, you guys will not get swept. You're far enough along. You're fine."
And I would just add that once you leave Hollywood Studios as part of the course, that's like mile 23. Once you exit Hollywood Studios and start down that path towards the boardwalk, I think you're pretty much okay at that point. They won't, because you're already out of the roads.
They won't come along and get you with a hook and pull you out. Oh,
so basically, it was like a huge relief. And then I didn't feel severely pressured. And then that last mile was the hardest mile I've ever, all my running, it was the hardest mile. I was in so much pain with my feet. It was
feet,
every
I think my
step.
back would hurt in my legs.
Yeah. And I had to go all the way through World Showcase and around to the ball and then out by the bathrooms there on the side behind guest relations. And it was tough. But I had people next to me who were just freaking out, like, where's the end of this? Where's the end of this? Because they didn't know Disney very well.
Oh.
And I was reassuring them. I said, okay, this is how far we have to go. This is where it is. And that
you were talking to people?
Oh, yeah, all the time. I thanked, and I know Aaron did this too, I thanked everybody. You go by and there's all these volunteers. There must have been thousands of volunteers on the course. And they're handing out water for you, and they're cheering you on, and they're out there at the break of day, and they're just wonderful people, and it's a pleasure to have them there because they're there to help you do your race.
That's what Katie said. She was thanking everybody as she was running through for being there.
I couldn't thank people enough, and I would encourage runners next to me, and I know Aaron did too. You encourage everybody because you're all in the same boat, and everyone has their own challenges.
Okay, so the people that were out in front, the
The runners.
The real run. I mean, not that you're not real runner. You know what I mean? Like the athlete people.
Absolutely.
You think they were encouraging people? Or they were in their own little mind. Just
For them, it's more competitive.
it's competitive.
It's
Okay.
timing. It's you know, wanting to finish in the top 10.
Okay.
Whatever their goals are. Everybody's got different goals. But I didn't see the final results, but I'm going to guess that the winner probably was around 2 hours and 30 minutes. That's usually how long it takes to complete it for a professional runner.
Wow.
So
He's got his whole day ahead of him.
Well, I thought it was sort of cool too to see that people were checking in and they were taking pictures of themselves in the parks. There was some that were riding Expedition Everest as part of their run. Where else could you do that but Disney?
I got to tell you guys, I mean, if you're going to run an event for the first time, Disney's the best place to do it.
This is one of the things I wanted to ask you. Is part of the marathon, obviously, you are getting to run through the parks. And what are some of the things you would say that you get to see on the marathon, whether it's backstage stuff or theme park stuff, or even some of the special things they do especially for the marathon? What are some of the things you get to see while doing the Disney Marathon?
Well, I'll tell you, through the 26-mile course, I mean, I would say at least every mile or every half mile, there's something. Whether it's a band, whether it's a character stop, whether it's streetmosphere, whether it's a prop, video. They've got big TV screens. Again, this is their flagship event, so they
Right.
put a lot into.
They had a gospel choir too, didn't they?
Yeah, that's
That's
it.
at
So you
the end.
stop during you stop for a character?
Yes.
I did.
It's the Sister Act Marathon.
Aaron did not want to, but after having done the half last year, and my time was absolutely horrible for half, and I was just like, I'm not ever coming here again to run for time. I'm going to come here to have fun. And so that's the way I approached it. And I came here for fun, and I kept my pace up because I have an app on my phone that tells me how fast I'm going, and my pace was 15 minutes for most of the race. And it was just near the end where it got slower. But I knew I was okay for time. And if it ever got higher, because I had stopped, I would kind of hurry up a little bit more to the
Make
next
up
mile.
time,
Yeah. And so you can, just like he was saying, you can do, I did a lot of character stops.
Were there food stops or no? They don't feed you.
They do. Because it's a marathon, they have to.
Yeah.
I mean,
Wow.
we had, what did we have?
We had bananas. There were gummy bears. So they gave you a lot of sugar.
It's not going to be like hamburgers or anything.
No.
Yeah, they're not going to leave you Doritos.
Yeah, you want, they'll give you like very fast sugars to dissolve. So you get a lot of, at every water stop, and you have Powerade and water, Powerade, water, Powerade, water. And then if they give you food, they'll have like...
They had bananas. They had gummy bears, chocolate.
Okay.
They have the Cliff Goo shots, which is just like
Shots?
Yeah, it's just a
Oh,
little
the drink.
packet.
Okay, got it,
No,
got it.
it's a little packet.
It's like a heavy cream, and it's a little packet. You
Yeah.
open it, and then you just kind of slide it out of your mouth, and it's just like
It's
a
sugary.
quick burst of energy.
Yeah, it's like I don't know how to
Sounds
compare
disgusting.
it.
Okay.
It's kind of like
It's like yogurt.
Coffee creamer.
Well, it's
no.
It's goo.
Yeah.
It's
Gooey.
they call it goo, but it's like it's an energy shot. It's like I don't know what to.
yeah, but they're good.
They're really tasty though. They have different flavors and everything, and you can choose which one you want because they have all sorts of different ones when you walk through.
So
And-
there's a lot of entertainment on the course. Like I said, this is if you're going to run an event for the first time, Disney's a great place to do it because there are a lot of distractions. It
Yeah.
kind of keeps your mind off of the pain that you're feeling because when
Right.
you everybody's got some sort of pain, and typically what happens is as you start running, you start getting pain in a certain area. You change the way you start. You change the way you run to compensate the pain, and then all of a sudden the pain shifts to another part of
Yeah.
your body, and then to another part of your body. And by the end of the race, you've pretty much everything hurts.
What's the point? I mean,
I'll tell you what the point is.
pain.
The point is crossing that finish line and knowing that you did it.
Right.
And I got to tell you, when I finished, I came around the corner, and Aaron was standing there and just screaming, "Go, Chris, go!" And he was so excited. And I went over and I gave him a big hug and a high five, and he took my picture right there. And I finished, and there weren't very many people when I was finishing, which was I actually kind of liked because Minnie and Mickey were there at the finish line. And Mickey and I made eye contact, and I just ran right for him, and my arms were just way up in the air, and I was so happy, and Mickey was just fist bumping and high four-ing and the whole. It was just awesome. I gave him a big hug.
Yeah, the look on your face, you could see it all.
It was just I've said this to other people. It's the top 5 things in my life, next to marriage, graduating from college, and the birth of my 2 kids. It's just awesome.
For everybody, it's a little bit different. Obviously, there's a sense of accomplishment when you cross the finish line, but it's personal for some people. For some people, it's just accomplishment. For some, they're doing it for other reasons, and when they get across, they just collapse and start crying, and I can understand why completely.
Okay, I've seen a lot on Facebook. A lot of our listeners and my Facebook friends with all their medals, that all the it's just like medal rooms, and I'm going, my gosh, are you getting this, Kathy? I mean, it just freaks me out.
Yeah. I got to go to dinner with the 2 of them, and between those 2 and Katie sitting there, and they're like, I feel like such a slouch that I haven't done this.
Yeah.
I'll run to work tomorrow. What did you say? It's like 48 hours.
I can imagine the sense of personal achievement that you must feel from doing that. It, like you said, it makes me feel a little lazy.
Well, I'm going to go on record. I'm going to do the 5K next year.
Yes.
I'm going to do it.
Okay.
You know, it's at Disney. I wouldn't want to do this anywhere else.
I want to give people a little bit of perspective. A 5K is 3.1 miles, and if
is that all that is?
And yes, well, and if you think about it,
are there scary balloon people chasing you in that one?
In the 5K, I don't think it's that bad.
So. Not in that one.
Yeah. Well, you think about in middle school and high school, you're running a mile every day at track.
Oh no, I did not.
I'll give you
I
perspective.
sat on the bleachers.
Give you perspective. So
Wrote sentences.
a 5K is 3.1 miles, and if you think of World Showcase at Epcot, around once is a mile. So for a 5K, you're going around 3 times. That's basically the 5K.
So you can walk around that 3 times, you'll be fine.
Yeah. So that's perspective.
And
Seriously.
hearing,
Thank you.
when you get there, because we were there at 5 o'clock in the morning, and you hear the music and the DJs pumping everybody up. I said, the last couple of years that I've gone to see it, that if they had a sign-up stand right there, I would have signed up that day. But when you have a moment to think about it, it's like, well, I don't know. But after seeing it this year and watching what Katie did and realized that Katie did it, I can do that too. So I'm going to do it.
The great thing about Disney races is it's really a party and a celebration. At the beginning, during, and end, it is so much fun.
What's the cost involved?
Run Disney it's not a cheap proposition at all. The 5K was somewhere between $80 and $90. I know for the full marathon I paid, it was like around $150. So it's not a cheap proposition, because not only do you have the race fee. If you're coming from out of town, you're paying for travel, hotel room, food. If you're buying souvenirs and things at the fitness expo, so it is not a cheap proposition. The people that did the Dopey Challenge paid $499 for the races,
just for the race.
And what about availability for a slot in the race?
Well, it kind of depends. This year they added the Dopey Challenge, which was all 4 races if you completed those. So that kind of helped spread some things out, but there were 7,000 slots for that, and those filled up very quickly, within
hours.
Maybe a day. And then everything else kind of fell behind that. Then you have something called the Goofy Challenge, which the Goofy Race and a Half Challenge, which is the half marathon, and then the full marathon. So if you do both of those races, Saturday is the half, Sunday the full.
That's the Goofy.
That's the Goofy, and you get a Goofy medal. There's slots there for that. So we were doing some, talking about statistics. There were 7,000 people for the 5K, maybe 8,000, 10,000 for the 10K. 25,000 ran the half, and 22,000 ran the full marathon. Now, obviously, some of those are repeats because some people did multiple races. But in the end, there's probably about 45 to 50,000 people
running
at Walt Disney World,
and their families,
races, and their families, correct.
And all those people. I mean, it's. But then again, has it felt crowded in the parks because of that? In the beginning of January.
But I will tell you, if you did all 4 races, you were getting up at 2:30, 3 o'clock every morning to make it over to the start line, and doing that 4 days in a row. That's just as hard as running those races.
You don't do anything else. You don't really have time or energy to go to parks.
Yeah. Here's a kind of I don't know if it's a stupid question or not. Okay, so there's 20,000 people running a race, right? how do you know y'all can't be on that start line at the same time? What's the rule of who gets to stand where?
Okay, so what they do is they have something called corrals, and you submit your time.
Your time of what?
Well, like for example, if you do the half marathon, to be seated higher in the corral, which means you want to be
Closer to the
corrals
front.
are like lettered, so they're like A, B, C, D, E, F, so on.
Right.
If you want to be in that A corral, you have to have a really good time because you're going to be around other people that have a really good time.
You have to prove that. How do you prove that?
You do. You submit a previous race entry.
Okay.
So the result is submitted, and it's official. It has to be a certain type of race that
Right.
you have to have run in. And they'll say so when you sign up for races. It'll say this qualifies for Boston,
Okay.
or this will
Right.
qualify you for New York or whatever. So you know your time will be official. And then Disney, when you sign up, Disney will ask you, okay, what race did you run? What was your bib number? And what was your time? And they can go look that up because it's stored
Right.
in a database. And then what you do is you put your time in, and then sometimes you don't have to put your time in if you're slower, but what happens then is you'll get put into the different corrals according to your ability, because you don't want to be a walker doing 16-minute walking miles next to someone who's running a 6-minute mile. You're going to be in the way,
Right.
and it's not going to be safe. So that's why they do it that way.
So did you guys start in the same corral?
Yes, we did. Yeah, we did, just because we wanted to be kind of together, talk, and kind of give each other encouragement. So
You were talking about incorporating your pastimes from other marathons and other races. Now, how in the community of races and marathons, how does the Disney Marathon stack up? Is it there's the New York Marathon, there's the Boston, those are the really popular races. How does this one stack up?
yeah, and I would just say this: I haven't run Boston, I haven't run New York. I mean, I've run in Indianapolis, which is actually the largest in the country, but I would say that Run Disney does just a spectacular job with coordinating these races. I mean, they don't miss anything. So you really don't mind paying that. I hope I'm not like raising the price of the fee next year, but you really don't mind paying that amount of money because going into it, you're going to have a quality event. It's very well done. With so many people running in the race, there's chances something could happen. Maybe you get hurt, but even if you got hurt during the race, I think you're in great hands with Disney.
And it sounds to me like, and I don't know how other races or marathons are across the country, but it sounds like, at least for Disney, that it seems like it's a very accepting race. All types of runners, walkers, shapes, sizes, anybody can do this and have a good experience. It sounds like
There's certain intangibles to the Disney races. I can tell you that when we were at the start line of the 10K and the marathon, when they start every corral, I mean, just a huge display of fireworks.
Yeah.
Mickey Mouse is at the start in his running gear, counting down, and then your corral goes. I mean, it's pretty cool to experience.
Another thing that I was touched by, somebody put up a video of the very last runner in the marathon on Sunday. And to me, that was the Disney touch, because this guy, the coaches were like walking up with him, but Disney treated that runner like he was the very first runner to cross the line. They had confetti, they had the characters. And I'm sitting there and I've got tears coming down my cheeks because it was Disney. And look how they treated him. That I said, if that was your first one or whatever, how awesome is that?
Yeah.
And they've been doing that at least the last 4 years that I know of, where when the last runner comes around the corner and sees the finish line, there's characters there, and they basically escort that person across the finish line and make a big production
Drag
out
him
of it.
across.
Speaking of the finish line, looks like you guys have some swag.
Yeah, that's the other. Like I say, there's some intangibles that Disney does really well, and one of them is medals. This was the marathon medal for this year, which is very nice. And then last year there was the 20th anniversary of the marathon, and that one was really cool. Had a spinner on it, and it was really nice. So this was the marathon, and then the 10K, which this was its first year. This is the inaugural medal for the.
So you did the 10K too?
6.2 miles.
Yeah, we did too. 10K was on Friday, and this was the marathon was on Sunday.
Yeah.
Okay, if you're, I can't stop thinking about the balloon people. If you get swept away, you don't get a medal, right? It's a done deal.
It depends. It really depends. We talked to several people about it, and I think it really comes down to discretion.
Really?
And there's really no fine art to it. I think if you get swept at like mile 5, and that's just arbitrary, it could be any mile. I think it really depends on your drive, how you're doing, that type of thing.
Really? So it's not a cut and dry, you're gone, no medal.
Now, on the dopey and the goofy medals, if you do not finish, you do not get them.
Yeah, they're
They're
considered.
very strict about that.
Yeah, they're considered challenges, and if you don't complete the challenge, they will not give you the medal.
Right.
Yeah.
The other thing is, for me personally, if I, for whatever reason, quit, I wouldn't want this medal because I didn't do it.
Right.
You know, and it's really up to you. And I don't think, in my personal opinion, I know people do everything they can sometimes and they just can't do it. And I applaud them. But there is something to be said of finishing that race and getting that medal. I mean, it really is. It's something.
Yeah, because you're going to display it because you're proud of it, and when you look at it, every day or how often you look at it.
Every day.
Every day.
I sleep with my medal.
Well, and
Admit it. You sleep with it.
Well,
Okay.
depending on how many times you look at it, you always want to look at it with that sense of accomplishment that, I got there.
Right.
And I'll tell you, blood, sweat, tears, pain, feet were so sore, almost
You earned it.
numb.
Yeah.
I
And
mean,
that was Sunday, right?
Yeah.
And you okay today? Today's Tuesday?
We're better.
usually the progression is after the race, you're in pain. The next day is actually, I got to be honest with you,
it's so
the
much
day
worse.
after is worse. And
I believe that. I
and
believe
today
that,
being
yeah.
Tuesday, we're actually coming downhill now, and we're a little bit better.
Today I could walk downstairs.
Exactly. So
Makes me want to run.
I could not walk downstairs yesterday. It was everything that I
gosh.
could. It was everything I had to walk down the steps.
and I was telling Chris,
One step,
I was
a
telling
curb.
this is part of the experience. I mean, the experience is not only just finishing the race, but part of it is the after recovery.
Yeah.
Because that's all part of the race experience. You're like, oh my God, I'm in so much pain, but you'll eventually come off of that, and then you'll remember like I remember how I was like waddling through the park because I couldn't put any pressure on my legs. I'll tell you a little story. We were at Universal last night, and we were walking out of City Walk.
Oh, this is fun.
And there was a security guard there, and Chris had a cup of water in his hand. And Chris actually started to kind of like wobble and
Oh,
move
my.
side to side. And I could see the security guard looking at him with a little bit of inquisitiveness. And when we walked up, the security guard stopped Chris and said, "Are you okay? And is that water in your cup?" So there was a little bit of thought of maybe he was a little intoxicated. But he was in so much pain that he had that
Wow.
moving from side to side. And
He saw my shirt and he goes. I said it's water, and he saw my shirt. He goes, "Marathon." I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Yeah, I understand." He smiled at me.
funny story.
Yeah.
Did you get checked out by a doctor before you do this, so you don't your
Oh,
heart doesn't
absolutely.
explode or
Oh,
anything? Okay.
and that's what I tell everybody. Everybody has, and this will kind of tailor a story from the 10K. We had a friend who ran, who did the 10K, and they were walking, and his ankles were very bad, and that 10K was absolutely everything that he could do.
Yeah.
I mean, it was almost looked like more pain than what I went through to do the marathon, and that was his marathon. And that's what I want to stress to everyone is that it's your own journey. You do what you can do, and if you can't do more than a 10K, congratulations for what you did. And you'll see runners. It doesn't matter what you did. I mean, we've seen tons of different people this weekend. 5K, people that wear their medals. 5K, 10K, half, full, goofy, dopey, all different kinds. And everybody congratulates each other because you're all at a different point in your life. You all have a different journey that you're on. And our journey took us to this point. But for him, an example, he couldn't do more than that. And I always tell people who ask us, because a lot of people have asked us, well, what's it like? Is this something that I could ever do? How do I start? I always tell them, and I know Aaron does, go see your doctor first to make sure it's medically okay for you to do it, because a lot of people can't. You have certain challenges that you've got to deal with. And that's why I had to stop running because of my back. And my doctor said, I don't want you to run anymore. But I can walk, and the walking puts no compression on my back.
Right.
So, and I actually recover far faster than I did when I was running my races, when I was doing my half marathons. I feel a lot better after when I'm walking. So it's better for me anyway.
Yeah. You don't want to find out on the race course that you have a physical problem.
Yeah, no.
Right.
That's
Weak
the
heart
last
or
thing in the
something.
world, right? And then you're kind of out there. And the other thing too is if you're coming in for this race, you got to keep in mind that you are, you may be hundreds of miles from where you live, and getting hurt at home is one thing,
Right.
But then getting hurt, in Orlando is a different,
It's a scary thing.
It is, exactly. So.
When did you two know that you were going to finish? Because I know you were, if you could do more than a half of a marathon and you decided to go for the whole, but where in that course did you decide that you knew you had it?
I would say when I walked into, when the balloons passed me, I knew I would make it, because I didn't have the pressure of
Right.
some of them sweeping me. But I got to tell you, that mile 25, oh my gosh, it was everything I had. And I'll tell you, when I run or when I walk, it's step by step by step by step. It's one step at a time, and you will get there, but it's one step at a time, and you just keep going.
Yeah, I had a fear of being swept. I mean, I was constantly thinking about that. In fact, I ran my first 13 miles a little bit slower to kind of pace myself, but then I started thinking about how far are these sweepers behind me, and I actually ran.
You're looking over your shoulder.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I was asking people, like, does anybody know where the sweepers are? So I actually ran a little bit faster the second 13 miles, and I think it was just out of fear. Like
Oh
I gotta hurry up. I don't want anybody coming up behind me.
Get scooped.
Well,
Yeah.
if Chris wasn't with you, they were.
Well, and you don't know, and because this was
You don't
our
know.
first marathon.
He didn't know where I was.
Yeah, I mean,
He didn't know if I'd been swept.
Yeah.
Because
Oh my gosh,
there's
how
nothing like
terrifying.
telling you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's a 16-minute. They highly recommend a 16-minute mile. That's the requirement for the race. But when
it's
you're starting
26
in a corral,
16-minute miles.
right? And when you start in a corral, like we started in corral M, and the last corral was corral P. So there were N, O, and P, and then the sweepers. So you kind of had like a 20-minute cushion, 20 to 30-minute cushion behind you until they would get to you if you were slow.
Yeah.
So it's hard to gauge
It's like a
when
bad
that's
movie.
going to happen
God.
if you're slower than the 16-minute pace. So it's really, you just got to kind of go, and and know your speed.
And not worry about
Yeah.
the balloon people.
Well, guys, we're gonna have to wrap this up here in a minute, but I just wanted to kind of end on the note that we were touching on a few minutes ago, which is, you guys are certainly coming at the marathon from a sense of, self-motivation and accomplishment, and I think that. Everybody that did any of the races this weekend were probably there for that same reason, and were able to find that. And if you haven't got to that point yet, we strongly encourage that you go to the DIS boards, go to the Wish board, and see if you can start on that journey yourself, and kind of find that motivation for yourself, and find how you can find that accomplishment.
just one last comment. Running doesn't have to be all about running. It can be just part of an overall fitness portfolio for your life. You can do other things. You can cycle. You can lift weights. You can make running part of all that. But I will tell you this: when you cross the finish line for the first time, whether it's a 5K, 10K, half marathon, whatever you want to call it, it changes your life forever. And I can't explain it. You just kind of have to do it, and you'll understand.
And just to see the looks on people's faces, because I said your picture, I didn't see yours, but like Katie's, the look on Katie's face was a look I don't usually see, but she felt so good. She was,
It's such an accomplishment. I mean, and it's something that you did. I mean, you had to pull everything you have out of yourself to do it. And sometimes it just takes absolutely everything you have, every ounce of energy, and it's just amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you guys so much for coming in and talking about your experience at the marathon. And we loved having you, and hope that you guys can join us again sometime.
This has been an incredible weekend. Thanks for having us.
Wonderful weekend.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Congratulations to all the runners who
Absolutely.
did finish.
Yeah.
Well, folks, that is going to do it for our episode here on the DIS Unplugged. We hope you enjoyed it, and we will see you next week with another edition of the DIS Unplugged. Have a good weekend, everybody.